One of the best parts about this game is the community. For many of us, the focal point of having a community is a local OTS store that we can go to every single week. There, casual and competitive players can play with their friends. Many people who go to these tournaments think to themselves, man, starting a store for myself is a great business venture. What doesn't get talked about often, though, is how many of these OTS stores actually shut down because they're not ran successfully or the owner doesn't have what it takes or the desires to go through the motions to ensure that they have a successful business. Well, what happens when someone who loses their OTS store decides that they don't want that to be the end of their story? Ladies and gentlemen, today we have a very special guest. We have a man who, many years ago, started a OTS store, Action Tournament and Games. In just a few short months, he lost that business. But instead of giving up on his dream, he decided to spend years and years and years studying, learn how to run a business, learn how to be a successful store owner, and eventually, many years later, being able to open his store again. I'm very happy to say that he has been open since 2020 and has been thriving ever since. Join me as we listen to this incredible story about how a man lost his business many years ago and used that as motivation to become a successful store owner today. Help me in welcoming Mr. William Cadden.
Hello, hello.
How's it going, Will?
Hey, I'm doing good. How about you, Alex?
I'm doing great. Not many people know this, but you're actually a really good friend of mine. We've known each other for what, 5, 6 years now?
Yeah, I think what was it either 17 or 18 we met you?
I think it was 2018. I remember that's when I first got back into the game. We went to a local card shop around here. I forgot the name of it. Showcase. That was it. Showcase.
Yeah,
I
that's
was
right. That's
just
when
getting
it.
back into the game. Yeah, Showcase. I was just getting back into the game. I had 3 structure decks, and then being a longtime Yu-Gi-Oh player, you used to bully me and beat me down with your better deck than I had all the time.
Well, yeah. How else did you expect to learn how to play?
Exactly. If it wasn't for that dude, I don't know where I would be at today without y'all beating me all the time. So tell me,
I remember.
what got you into Yu-Gi-Oh?
Oh, the show, the show. I'm a '90s kid. I definitely remember the first episode of Yu-Gi-Oh premiering on it was WB Kids, and I was hooked. I was hooked from the beginning. The whole story of Yugi and Kaiba starting it off, and then Grandpa getting kidnapped, and they having to go to Duelist Kingdom. I was enthralled. I loved it all, and I specifically remember going to Target, and my aunt bought me my first pack of Yu-Gi-Oh cards. It was a pack of Metal Raiders.
So did you also get the starter deck with that pack, or was it just like,
That
hey, you have the starter pack, you can play now?
that following Christmas, I got the Yugi Kaiba starter decks.
You got each of them?
Yeah, I got one of each for Christmas that year.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I remember when I was a kid, my mom would tell me, "Hey, you get just one or the other. Do you want a starter pack to play with, or do you want a starter deck?" And she didn't know the difference between the two.
Right. Yeah, I know. I was the same. Like those were Christmas gifts. That was a luxury for me to get those. And I think like maybe like once every couple of weeks when it was like payday for my parents, they buy me like one pack of cards, and I was so ecstatic. I was taking out the trash, whatever I had to do to get that pack of cards.
And ever since then, you were just hooked, huh?
Yep. I was just been into it ever since, and I mean, played with my friends. Well, first I started playing with my parents. I made them learn how to play the game, and I'm sure I did all the Duelist Kingdom cheating, wonky BS. And my little brother, when he was old enough to comprehend the game, I think he was like maybe like 4 or 5. Just teaching him how to play Yu-Gi-Oh, just so I had anyone to play with.
Does he still play today?
No, no, he. God, I think he quit probably around the GX era of the game. It just didn't keep him as interested.
I can definitely understand that. That's around the time that I quit too. Actually, was when Dad came out synchro, so just a little after GX. So growing up, you got these packs, you got these starter decks. Uh, what did the Yu-Gi-Oh community look like for you? Did you go to a card shop? Did you do the Books a Million? What did that look like growing up?
So uh, when I first got into the game, We were living in Chalmette at the time. There was a small card shop over there. That said, I was still pretty young at the time. My parents didn't really let me go there without them, so I didn't get to compete in anything there. I mostly just played with my friends. The old schoolyard Yu-Gi-Oh trope. And by friends, I mean I had like two friends that I played Yu-Gi-Oh with outside of my parents and my brother. But post Katrina, I moved to Hammond, and after I moved to Hammond, my dad came to me one day. He's like, "Hey, he's like, we went to the mall over there, and there was like 20 something people playing Yu-Gi-Oh." In a tournament as this it was Chuck's Field of Dreams. For anyone who lives in Louisiana, y'all know the shop. They've been around forever. They used to be inside of a mall, and they used to have the most packed locals that you ever seen. This was like the height of the GX era. I think like Cybernetic Revolution just came out when I started going there. And I started going, and at the time I didn't know how tournaments worked. So I would show up for round one, get the ever living crap kicked out of me, and I was like, all right, well, I need to go home and fix my deck. So I'd leave after round one, not knowing that there was another round until probably after like a month or so. I was waiting on my parents. They were taking a while. They normally came and got me right away after I was like, hey, yeah, I'm out. And they're like, round two. And I'm like, what's round two?
It's funny to me how many people actually come to the game and not realize that there's a difference between Swiss and what's it called, like single round elimination.
Yeah, like a single elimination, double elimination bracket.
Yeah. Do you remember what deck you were playing back then?
Oh boy, it was an amalgamation of my like favorite cards. I specifically remember I love the artwork of Baby Dragon, so I would always put Baby Dragon in my deck. But it was not very good. Um, I was definitely a kid. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just piling together cards that I liked. Like I had like an elemental hero deck. I probably had like a warrior deck or whatever it may have been at the time. Nothing that was actually good. And this was probably at like the height of like goat format, right? Somewhere around that time,
Right.
Cyber Dragon released. Um, and I remember Dark World was just coming out, I believe, in Elemental Energy, and I was just getting cooked by those decks at the time. And so I remember the first game I ever won because I would just go 3-0. I'm sorry, go 0-3-0-4, however many rounds it was every single week. But I was just playing Yu-Gi-Oh, so I was having time in my life. I was trying to take that knowledge in, and I'm trying to figure out deck building and how to play. And the first time I ever won a match, I was so excited. I was playing this Armed Dragon deck. I don't know how I won. It's like Mash Dragon into level 3, into level 5. Somehow I pulled out a victory. And that was the most excited that I had ever been. I finally won my first match in a tournament.
It sounds like very Yugi Boomer type energy right there. But how many people could say they won a match with Armed Dragon in an actual tournament? They're like, come on.
Yeah, and I kept at it, and probably so thinking around that timeline when I got there, I was probably like 11 when I first started going to those tournaments. Um, and probably by the time I was 14, I was able to get my first job, and that actually started to be the difference maker. I was a kid. I worked a part-time job after school, and I had money for cards. I went and bought a Cyber Dragon. I went and bought a Solemn Judgment. These were like $30+ cards at the time. Mind you, I didn't grow up with a lot of money. Remember the pack every other week story. So the opportunity that I was able to purchase the cards that I recognized in everyone's decks started to make the difference, right? And I started to notice, hey, I went from just winning that one ever match to like, oh, I'm starting to go like 2-2 every week, right? Steadily improvement. And one week I just I think this was like close to. No, I think Phantom Darkness had released. Phantom Darkness had released, and I threw together like this chaos deck with like Dark Greffers and DMOC, and this was like the Dad Return format. And I went like 3-1 in the tournament. I never did that before, and I was in Top Cut all of a sudden. I got knocked out immediately in Top Cut by the guys who are like much better players in the area. But I just remember that feeling. I'm like, oh, I like that. I want that again.
Absolutely. At what point did you notice a turning point as a player to where you started getting better and starting getting the same level as some of these other players?
So I would, I definitely was good at taking it. Like I said, I always was able to recognize the cards that were good, and then it just started to come down to the deck building. I wasn't aware of like the online forums. It was like Pojo was the big thing at the time. YouTube was not even like a thing for Yu-Gi-Oh at the time. If it was like very very niche. And so, what actually progressed my evolution as a player in the game, uh, funny enough, my parents owned their own business, and they had again, my dad came to me. He's like, "Hey, man," he's like, "We have this guy that works for us, and he says he's like a professional Yu-Gi-Oh player." And I'm like, "What? You could be a professional Yu-Gi-Oh player?" My mind was blown, right? He's like, "Yeah, like he's got like these nice play mats." He says he travels all across the country competing in these events, and I'm like, "I got to meet this guy, right?" uh, so they introduced me to him, and to put this in perspective, I think I'm like 15 at the time, right? And this guy's like in his 30s, and he's like, "All right," he's like, "Show me your deck," and we sit down and we play, and we're playing, and he's like, "You got a lot of potential." He's like, "But your deck is trash." he's like, I see what you're trying to go for. He's like, "I'm gonna fix your deck." He's like, "Give me your deck." So he fixed my deck, and this was like after like the Shadow Caius Monarch deck came out, and he
Mhm.
he fixed my deck for me. He said, "Take this to locals." He's like, "I promise you, you'll be in top four next week." I'm like, "All right, take it to locals." He was right. I made top four with the deck, no problem. So that was that was me getting to refeel that feeling of winning and doing better. And basically he was like he's like every day after school he's like me and you are gonna play test because it's about time. He's getting off of work, and we just sit in my parents' office all night. Just gave me the key, and we would sit there till like 8 or 9 at night, just play testing, grinding and grinding and grinding. And I mean, it went from top four to winning those locals like it was nothing.
That's crazy that it took like a mentor almost to kind of get you into the competitive aspect of the game. It's almost equivalent to like what coaching is nowadays, huh?
Yeah, and you know what? I'm on the opposite side. I think of a lot of people you see in Zodiac complaining about the coaching thing, like mocking it, because I came up from that. I came from someone who took me under their wing, and it made the world a difference. I definitely wouldn't have gotten to the heights of a player that I did without him showing me the ropes. So to get an insight from somebody who's well traveled, who just understands that player to player interaction, the vast knowledge of cards, it makes the world a difference. Someone who's going to sit there and critique your deck and your play style and tell you what you could have done better. You play with blinders on, and a lot of people don't realize that. I hear a lot of the, "Oh, I misplayed," or I could have done this, I could have done that. Like, no, a lot of time it's just like you made a bad decision, or you committed to a move that wasn't maybe optimal for what you thought I might have had. But you don't see that when you're playing. You're just, you're angry in hindsight. But someone behind you who's watching is like, "No, this was actually the more obvious move. You thought in your head you were making the right move, right? Something along those lines."
And just having someone coming back behind you and saying what you need to hear essentially, because if we're not able to self-reflect and realize that what we need to do and improve ourselves as players, we're never going to improve. And having someone have that accountability for us is just integral as players.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really helps when you have somebody who's a member of your own community because you're going to respect their opinion a lot more. Someone that you're kind of battle tested with, like you go to locals and you're like, "Man, this guy's sweeping locals every week. Like I need to talk to him. He knows something I don't." Right. And you become friends with these people, and they'll be your testing partners and your teammates. And they really really will help get you to the next level. But yeah, it's still there's no shame in reaching out to one of the coaches, especially like Hani. I knew Hani when Hani wasn't a good player, and I look at him now and I'm just like crazy. This kid used to ask me to play test with him, right? He's achieved heights I never could have.
Well, to be fair, back then you probably achieved heights he probably never thought that he could achieve.
Yeah, it's one of the longest reigning YCS toppers in LA for a while, but definitely way past my time. And these guys are definitely killing it now.
Oh, for sure. Louisiana has some insane players. But back then, when did you really start traveling to different events? And like you kind of said before, you topped a YCS. What was that moment like for you?
Yeah, so well, the same guy who mentored me, his name's Lawrence. He's still a great friend of mine to this day. He sadly doesn't play the game anymore, but he was the first one to take me to a regional. He took me to Ambooks too, and he's like, "I'm going to take you to first regional play," and I was able to top my first regional. I don't remember how people were there, and look, I'm not sitting here telling you I was a prodigy right off the bat. It was somewhere in the top 32, but it was enough to get an invite to nationals, right? So I was excited. I was a kid who went from just starting to top his locals to, oh wow, I topped a regional, and I got an invite to nationals. That was exciting, and so the next step from there was. Hey, I'm going to nationals, right? And do you know what it's like to be a 15-year-old and go to your parents and say, "Hey, can we go to Pittsburgh so I can go play in a Yu-Gi-Oh nationals?" And I thought that was going to be an indefinite no, right? And my mom and dad were like, "We'll talk about it," and I was like, "I'm sorry, what?" So yeah, I was blessed. They took me to my first nationals. They went and made a vacation out of it. They went and looked around the city and everything. I was at the convention hall with my friends the entire time, and that was a great experience. I went X3 at my first nationals. I was super duper excited. I was playing Lightsworn, and that was a great experience. I met a lot of great people. Um, I'll tell you the first thing I did when I got there. My buddy Lawrence used to tell me this. He's like, he would tell me all the legends of Yu-Gi-Oh at the time, right? Guys like Jerry Wing. Who else was there? Like Philly Luna. Um, it was getting old. I gotta remember everybody's names. There were so many of them. Anyway, all the people who were good at the game back in like the late 2000s era. And he's like you should go play some of them. He's like, you need to go find the best player in the room and go play them. I'm like, all right. I was like, understood, right? I was like, I need the experience. So the first day I got there, I was like, all right. I was like, who's the best player in this room? He's like, that guy over there. He's like, that's Philly Luna. He's a 3-time Shonen Jump champion. I was like, all right, I'm gonna go play him for cards. And I went and played him for cards, and I beat him every game. And that was like a massive, massive confidence booster. And I ended up becoming good friends with him later on as well, because we just start running into each other at different events. But I would start doing that. I would walk up to whoever was like the better player in the room. These guys who won events were constantly topping, and I would like, hey, can we play for cards? Can we play for cards? And I lost my fair share of games, but the experience was invaluable. That's how you got it back then. You had to go up and play for stakes. These guys, it was all about pride. Um, so yeah, so we go from that was my first nationals, and I think right after that was 2009, and right after that was a Shonen Jump in Orlando. I went competed in that, didn't do super well there. I think we had a new ban list, and I was still trying to figure out my deck. The next event I went to was a Shonen Jump in Austin. That was a great event. I had stumbled upon this deck. It's basically like this chaos control deck, and the guy who won the event was playing like the same deck, but it was like three or five card difference, something like that, right? But my side deck was terrible, and I realized that after the first day. I think I ended the day at like X3 or X4 or something like that towards the last rounds, and I was like, all right, I need to go fix this, and so I went back the next day and competed in one of those 16 player regionals. Won one of those, and that felt fantastic. I just won a small regional. I got my invite at the beginning of the season, and anyone who knows, when you get your invite at the beginning of the season, it's just a high. You don't have to care the rest of the format until nationals. You get to relax and take it easy, play some fun decks, have a good time, right? So that's a lot of what I did up until that. But we were still going to. I think we went to one more Shonen Jump after that. We went to the was it the whichever one was the one in New Jersey. I can't remember if it was like the 100th or 50th, something like that. Shonen Jump. It was the last one ever that they did. Went to that. That was the first time I day two'd an event. It was like 2,000 plus people. and I was playing Machine of Gadgets. I don't know how I day 2 playing Machine of Gadgets, but I did. And my last round opponent, funny enough, was one of my people I rode up there with. And so we were all crowded. It was like 12 of us in this room. We didn't have enough blankets or beds. And so I was like, "Hey man, why don't we put that blanket you have on the line?" He's like, "So whoever wins this match goes on to day 2 and gets the blanket." And I 2-0'd him. I OTK'd him twice, took the blanket, and made day 2. Sadly, I think I lost like the first round of day 2 after that. So I was knocked out of it from there. But still, nice experience to get there. From there, that's when they made the switches to YCS. Konami was taking over from UDE, so all these big changes were happening. And they were, switching up the style of everything. They had already started the process, but now they're like fully merging it into what they want it to be. The next event we go to was YCS. I think it was like something Virginia. It might have been Richmond. Not really sure. Did terrible there. That was not a good event. And then the following one after that was YCS Chicago, and this is a story in itself of my first top. Um, so we'll separate the story into 2 parts. We'll talk about the Yu-Gi-Oh aspect of it first, and then the negative aspect of it afterwards.
Absolutely.
So the good part about this event was I was pretty comfortable with the format at this point. I was playing Gladiator Beast. I was very confident in the deck. I was to the point where I was going to either regionals or other events, and I was like having to tell my opponent what to do, and I was still beating them. Right, like I was forcing my opponents to play optimally so I could beat their optimal play. I had really reached a next level of play, and it's hard to describe until you get there. You really have to work and grind for it. Like I understood the format. I was playing all the decks, me and my friends in our test group. So I knew the format inside and out. I knew what Infernity could do. I knew what X Sabers could do. I knew what Frog Monarchs, Frog FTK. I was aware of like what all these decks were capable of doing. So I was the most relaxed I had ever been at an event. There was no nerves, anything. I was just confident. And I was so confident, I actually didn't realize like that I was about to make day 2 till we were in the second to last round, and I was still X1. I forget if I was like 6-1 or 7-1. And again, I won the last round, so I'm in. I leave X1 going into day 2, and I just it was a moment of I didn't realize like I had just been playing all day. It didn't even phase me that I just made day 2 for this event, and I had a high likelihood of topping. Right. So we go into day 2. Um, we will come back to the events of day 2. What kind of stained this event. Unfortunately, I was not able to win my last 2 matches after that. But through some miracle, I wasn't even in the room because I was X3 at this point, and I was like, "Oh, there's no chance that I top this event. I know that I'm out." Uh, they are whatever the attendance cap was, whatever the records worked out with. I was the only X3 to ever make top 32. They called my name on the announcement and said I was the guy in 32nd place at X3, topping YCS Chicago. So
That's
yeah, yeah. My friend is in the room calling me. He's like, "Will, they just called your name. Will, they just called your name." I'm like, "What are you talking about? You topped the YCS. Get over here." I'm at our hotel across the street. I'm running across the street to get back. Now, mind you, there's something else going on here as to why why I lost the last 2 rounds, why I didn't top. I get back to the venue, and the head judge is like, "I'm sorry, man." He's like, "You are a few minutes late. I do have to give you a round 1 game loss." And I'm like, "It's okay. It's okay." They give me the play mat, sit me against front of my opponent, and it was really sad. It was a mirror match. I was great in a mirror match, but I started with the round 1 game loss. He went first. The man just opened Cold Wave Cat, had solemn judgment and everything. He had everything. He had the God hand against me, and I only had one game, and I couldn't do it. So that's where my journey ended there for that event. So now we could tell the other side of that story as to why there's kind of a asterisk mark there on my top 32. So going into day two, the guys I rode up there with weren't necessarily the most reputable people. We'll go with that. And one of our friends at the time, he got into it with the guy who drove us up there. It was basically some squabble over gas money. And he was just like, oh, you're overcharging us for gas. Now, mind you, it was probably like $15-$20 over gas. And I told him, I was like, hey, man, don't worry. I'll pay the difference. I'm not even worried about it. Let's finish the event. Let's get him to take us home, whatever, to wrap this up. And he just wasn't having it. He was just this type of person. So the guy ended up leaving us. The guy left us there. Now, mind you, I'm a minor at the time. I'm 16 years old. Left in Chicago, right? One of our only one of our friends is of age. The one who started with it, who got into it with him. He's like 25, and then a couple of our other friends are with us, and they're both like 16, 17 as well. We're all like the same age. So, right. So now the police are involved because, the two minors just got abandoned on this trip. We have to call all our parents and let them know what's going on and basically figure out a way to get home. So all this is happening in between day two of the YCS. So, I'm sitting downstairs talking with the cops about what's happening and the round starting. So like at some point they're like, okay, well, they could tell like I'm visibly upset, and they're like, well, and you're like, what's going on? Well, my friends is like, oh, he's doing really good in the event, but he can't play right now because of this. And he's like, well, we kind of got things handled for the moment. You can go ahead and go play in the event. But again, by the time I get up there, I got a round one game loss. I'm late for the round. The judges are being very understanding about everything, but not DQing me. So again, I lose, and I have to play another round after that. But my mind is so frazzled between everything that's going on. I just play so poorly. I misplay completely, and I lose again from there. So yeah, so that was what was going on in the background. And again, we went back to the hotel to get our stuff because we're like, oh, we have to find a ride home now. I was the only one in the event. We're gonna call it a day, and that's when my friend calls me to let me know that I topped. So it was just a huge mess. I started off great on day one, everything was great, but that really just soured everything from there. And I felt like I could have gone way further in that event. Not saying I would have won it, but I think I definitely could have, at least made like top 16, top 8 with the way I was playing that weekend. And that was kind of it. I went to a few more events at Nationals and a few more YCSs after that, but that was kind of the end of me playing super competitively for a while.
That's a crazy story and a disheartening story too. That is how your first YCS top went. Let that be a lesson to everyone listening. Just you see sometimes people are looking for random runes, things of that nature on Zodiac Duelist when you go to these trips, and you don't know these people. You got you just. My advice to anyone in this game is to develop a group of friends. Maybe join a team if you're able to join a team, and make that your travel group. Me personally, I got Pop.1 now. Some great players, some great teammates, Michael Murphy, other players and whatnot. I trust these guys with my life. I let Michael drive my own car. Like, I couldn't imagine traveling to these events with people I just don't trust like that,
Yeah,
especially when you're a minor.
right. And the guy who drove us up there, I didn't know him super well, but it was like he was a friend of a friend kind of a thing, and they vouched for him. Like, all right, and it was not a good thing, and of course that like set my parents on high alert after that too, right? Because they're like, oh, you can't just go to these events with anybody anymore. They were like, it has to be people we know. We have to meet them in
Yeah.
person. So like that's what I think I only went to like 2 or 3 like YCSs after. I'm sorry, I went to a nationals, and then I think I went to like 1 or 2 YCSs following that. I didn't go there anymore after that because it was just kind of a pain. And again,
Yeah.
it just became so much more stringent to go to an event. And I was a teenager. I was also had other things going on.
Sure, and definitely with people I'm sure you knew at that point.
Yeah. Oh boy. Oh boy. Yeah.
So the years go on, and eventually you become a card shop owner. Tell us
Yep.
what started the desire to open your card shop, and tell us a story about the first time you opened action tournaments and games.
Yeah. So definitely the environment of going to my first locals. That's a feeling that is hard to describe if you haven't gotten to do it, which I recommend. Find your local scene. Go there. Just go there, you know. And if that one sucks, go to another one. There's more than one in your area, I promise you. But you're gonna
Definitely.
go in there and it's gonna feel like home. You're gonna These are gonna be people that you've never met before that are gonna be like brothers to you. They're these I have lifelong friends from this game. People that, like, twice my age, half my age, whatever it may be, we all have one thing in common, you know? It doesn't matter where we came from, what we believe, political stuff, blah, blah, who cares? We all love this game, and we're all friends because of it. Uh, and so I found that, I found that I was kind of a loner kid. I had, like, maybe, like, 2 friends growing up my entire life, and the first time I go to a card store and I'm just accepted by, like, these other people who, like, all have this one thing in common. We just wanna play this game. So,
Isn't it
that
crazy
feeling.
how isn't it
Good.
isn't it crazy how like you meet people you never would ever be friends with in your entire life, and now you're just
Yeah,
buddy
it's
buddy with them?
the wildest thing. I mean, like, people who, like, for no good reason to this day, like, we haven't even played Yu-Gi-Oh! Together in, like, 10, 15 years, and they're like, "Hey, just checking on you, saw you were doing this, congratulations," whatever it may be. Like, we're just still just talk on a regular basis. We're just friends because,
Absolutely.
your friendship will transcend the game eventually. People move on, but
Yeah.
that's besides the point. These people are your lifelong friends.
So wanting to create that environment for people that kind of motivated you and got you into the desire to start your first shop.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember as a kid going to a card shop, like, yeah, man, wouldn't it be cool to work in a card shop one day? And so I I think at this point I was 23. I was 23,
Mhm.
and a buddy of mine had just opened up his first card shop. And I was watching him go through the process, and he's talking about how great it is, and the challenges and the excitement of it. And I'm like, oh, wouldn't that be a really really cool thing to do one day? To just open a card shop. And at the time, I was kind of in between jobs. I was I think I was an arcade manager, and I was also, like, working construction on the side, and so I was making pretty decent money. And I was like, hey, I could actually, save up some money and just try and open up a small card shop here. Our area was, like, on and off for card shops all the time. Like, we had a really good one for a while called Magic's, and the owner was a great guy, but he was just I think it was just getting too much for him, and he wanted to move on and spend time with his family and his grandkids. So he ended up closing his. So we just kind of went a couple years without anything over here. I'm like, man, we really need this. We don't have anything in our area. And so I saved up the money. Uh, and I went and rented out I think it was like 1,000 square foot space, and everyone made fun of me for it.
Right.
I'll
Yellow.
tell you what, everyone stuck their head inside that bright yellow store and said, "What is this?" And that was the birth of Action Tournaments and Games, my first store. Um, it's an experience. I absolutely had no idea what I was doing. I
Mhm.
thought I did enough research to opening up a business, and I most certainly did not. I wasn't doing online sales. I was just, like, doing in store only. And I mean, to tell you, like, my volume was absolutely minimum. We were getting like 2 to 4 boxes of a set at a time. But I was, like, ordering, like, a box every week to do a box tournament. We had a pretty good seed for a while. We had people coming in, traveling around. Louisiana was kind of suffering for a good card shop for a while. Like, we were getting the NOLA crowd, the Baton Rouge crowd, the Hammond crowd. Like, everybody was coming to come play at our locals. And let me tell you something. By no means that I have a glorious local, but I had a case full of singles, and I had at least a couple boxes on the shelf every week for tournaments and buying and sleeves, whatever you needed. So that was going pretty good for a little while, but then the money caught up to me. I didn't have enough to keep it rolling, and uh, I also had like some personal stuff going on at the time, so it just made sense to close. So like later that year, after I opened that store, I closed it, and I was like, oh, I was like, I'm gonna go back to work. I'm gonna save up the money, and I'm gonna reopen. And then my construction job just completely fell through, so I had like no money at all, and basically just had to start over. And I have a wife, and I had a kid at the time, and and my wife had just gotten pregnant with our second child. So like as all this is just crashing, a lot going on all at once. So the idea of
Oh,
reopening the store kind of went away for a while.
oh, absolutely. I remember actually seeing the video where you had to announce that you're shutting down the store. What was that moment like for you? How did, if you don't mind me asking, how did you feel closing down your dream essentially?
It was sad. I knew at the end of the day, I'm like, I can't pay another month's rent here, and the rent wasn't even expensive. We just, we weren't making any money, uh, and it sucked. It sucked because as I'm telling everybody, they're like, oh no, they're like, why are you closing? Why is this? Like we still had a decent crowd coming out. I can't complain about the support we had. We had good support, but I just didn't have the money for it. And it was awful. It felt really bad. I mean, like that's really one of the worst feelings, to see something you work so hard just kind of go up in smoke. Uh, Now, to that avail, though, I think it was important. I think that needed to happen because, again, I was this 23-year-old kid who opened a business, who had no idea what he was doing, but that was like the biggest learning experience. Failing was the best thing that could have happened to me because I needed that to start moving in the direction that I did.
And that's why I love the story I hear from you is because you did fail and you did come back many, many years later. But before we talk about, you coming back, reopening your shop, tell me how long in between stores, uh, how many years was that? What did you do during that time span? And at what point did you realize, hey, I want to go ahead and open up a store again? Tell me that story, building up
Yeah.
to open up your shop again.
That's a great transition. So I opened up the shop in 2017, Action Tournaments and Games, and we closed that same year. I think it was like by November. Yeah, we had went out. I think I opened like that
Six
February or
months.
March. Yeah, about roughly 6 months.
Hmm.
Uh, Closed it then, and then from there, I uh, ended up going to work at Rouse's, which is a local grocery store chain. And at this point, I was kind of defeated. I went through like a severe bout of depression. Watching, like I said, my dream just kind of came crumbling down of the shop. And so I was like, I was like, I give up. I'm just gonna be an average Joe. I'm just gonna go to work. I'm just gonna get a paycheck. And mind you, I had done management before I got here, so when I get in there and I just see like what a disaster this place is, that feeling of just being an average Joe went away pretty quick. I think like maybe a month or two max, and I was just like, "Oh my god!" I was like, "This place is a disaster. This has no organization whatsoever." It's just like a circus in the store with how it's being ran. And so I was like, all right, I was like, I can't, I was like, never mind, I can't do this. I can't, I can't just be the average Joe who just comes in and pretends nothing is going on here, right? So I'm like, let me try and get in a management position. Played a little backroom politics, and they were kind of going back and forth with me there. And at that time, I got an offer from Walmart to go there. Walmart was basically like, hey, come work for us. Like, we'll have you in a management position in no time. And I'm like, all right. I was like, they're already saying they're going to pay me more to go there, and then I'll get promoted and get a raise. So I left. I think I worked there for like maybe 6, 7 months, and then I went to Walmart. And I wasn't at Walmart for like maybe 3, 4 months, and I got promoted to a supervisor like immediately. I the importance of saying whenever you work any of these jobs, and this is also good for like just any type of corporate America job. You need to know how to negotiate your pay. You need to know the right people to talk to. You need to know how to play backroom politics, and you need to know how to make yourself an asset to a company. Those are some of the most important things that no one ever teaches you if you want to move up in life. Um, so yeah, so I got a lot of these skills. I worked pretty hard, but I was pretty miserable. I was probably making some of the best money I ever made as a manager at Walmart, and but I absolutely despised my life. I hated being there every minute of it. I worked for them for 2.5 years, and I was like, I can't keep doing this. And I got this. So I was just like, man, I miss working for myself. I miss having my business. So the gears started grinding of maybe opening a store one day. Now, mind you, I will say that working for Walmart, I did gain an invaluable skill set working there, and it was not management as a skill set because no one there was capable of doing that themselves. But I learned a lot about inventory. I learned a lot about structure. I learned a lot about marketing, shelving, placement. A lot of things you think don't matter that really do, and especially just communication with your community. Uh, a lot of that stuff came in from working from Walmart, so that was a lot of valuable experience I gained from there. I learned, sales year to date, all these things I didn't know before when I had my first store, and I was just like, wow, no wonder I failed. I was like, I had no idea what I was doing compared to working here these couple of years. Really, really just kind of grinded in a lot of information that was necessary for running a business.
You take this knowledge, you spend quite a few years. We're talking what, 6 years, learning how to be pretty much run a business, how to manage people, how to run day to day operations. And at that point, you start to get an opportunity to start your own, get a second chance to start in a car shop. Tell us how that went.
Yeah. So you can get the TLDR version of this on the Pop.1 podcast shorts. Definitely check those out. But I'll give you the little bit longer version of it. uh, so some friends of mine who
And
are
this is
actually
around when
old
we
cus.
met, by the way.
Yes, yes, this was around when met because we were going to showcase at this time, and I think like that next year was
Hmm.
when we popped open with the shop. So
Hmm.
yeah, so it was some friends of mine who were former customers of my old shop. They had reached out to me and they were like, "Hey, Will, we plan on opening this business. It's going to be a candy store." I'm like, "Oh, that's really cool." I'm like, "It's pretty nifty. Why he opened a candy store?" I'm like, "Why are you talking to me?" And they were like, "Well, the space we're looking at basically just has like this big open room, and we were wondering, would you want to kind of run a card shop out of it?" And I'm just flabbergasted. I'm like, what? This is the wildest thing I've ever heard. A card store inside of a candy shop. But again, I was pretty miserable at Walmart. I was like, I'll take anything to get out of here, right? Uh, so I was like, all right. I was like, well, you know what? I was like, let me know how it goes. Keep me updated on it. Like, all right. And I think it was like maybe like 3 months later or so. They're like, hey, we got a lease for the building, and I'm like, oh wait, this is real. I was like, we're really doing this. So I was like, okay. I was like, all right. Well, then I have to go talk to my wife about it. I was like, hey, they want me to open a card shop inside of the candy store, and she's like, what? So that took some convincing in itself. But my wife is a very good person. She knows that if I have my mind set on something and I believe it'll work, she trusts me enough to follow through with it because she knows that whatever I'm doing, I'm not going to put our family in a bad spot. Um, so by the time it was all said and done, they had gotten the permits and everything they needed from the city to open up, and I did what I did on my part, and we opened a card shop inside of a candy store. Uh, it was called Mama's Candy, and we ran our shop outside of it, inside of it. Sorry, Action TCG, and just this front half, and I mean like we had like what maybe it's like 600 square feet. It was like 3 rows of tables on a
If
good
that.
day. Yeah, and this like
Yeah.
half built like wooden shelf and some tables with with some cards on it. And we started this at the beginning of March 2020. Now, for anyone who
Hmm.
has a little foggy memory, this is the month that lockdowns were put in place. So we were open for like a solid 3 weeks before they said you got to shut down. So we shut down for I believe it was 2 months total. We didn't do anything. We were closed for 2 months. Um, Now I'm actually pretty thankful of COVID because what COVID allowed me to do was build my online presence, and this was something that I neglected with my first store. That would have been a world of difference maker had I, taken the time to set up a TCG player store at the very least, right? And so getting to build that online presence got me in the habit and routine of listing cards and selling them, and I became pretty disciplined about doing that. So by the time we were able to reopen at like 25% capacity, I think we were allowed to have like 8 people already, and people were like itching to come out and play. Like, a lot of people were just like, yeah, we'll mask up. We don't care. We'll sit in front of the plexiglass, whatever we got to do. So yeah, we started doing that, hosting little local tournaments, and I mean, it grew, it grew, and um, it turned into more than I thought it was. I had low expectations coming from my first time around, but between doing the steady online sales, we were ordering the right amount of products, and we just had a super great local scene. We had people who wanted to play, people who weren't interested in remote duels. They wanted to come hold their cards. They wanted to come see their friends. They wanted to get out the house. They wanted something to do, and that
Want to
really
spend
just
the
put us in a
stimulus
really
money
good
too.
spot. What was that?
I said they wanted to spend their stimulus money too.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh man, stimulus money. Stimulus money was a lifesaver for for the Yu-Gi-Oh community. We sold cards left and right. Yeah, that was definitely good times. I remember I bought like two Ghost Black Rose Dragons like right when we opened, and then the pandemic hit, and I listed them online, and I sat them there. I've kind of forgot I listed them. I was like, yeah, we'll see if these sell. LOL. And then one day, I sold both of them. I was like, what? I was like, this is great. We can buy more product.
Crazy
Oh
how
yeah,
that happened.
yeah,
But
yeah. It's
what happened with
wild.
Mama's Candy eventually?
Yeah, so we were with them for I believe 2 years in total, and you know, uh, things were going pretty good. But I think ultimately they kind of had like some family stuff going on. I think there was like a family member who was sick that needed to be taken care of, and she was just the owner, Mama, who's a very sweet woman. She was just kind of overwhelmed with running the business, and she had like an accounting business she did on the side, and then like her having to help with her family. It just started to become too much for her. So she came to me and she's like, hey, I want to let you know that I think I'm going to be closing the shop. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I completely understand. And I couldn't express how thankful I was to her for the opportunity to do that, because we wouldn't be here right now. Uh, Getting to have the store that we have, the community that we have, without her had reaching out and just letting us do this. So again, I'm super thankful to them all the time. I still talk to them here and there, check in on them. They were really good people to us. And yeah, so that was about May of 20 what year are we in? We're in 2023, so that was 2021 or 22. I forget now. Um
One of those.
yeah, anyway, so from there I had been doing things were starting to slowly open up. I think this was like 22. It might have been early 22 when she told me this. But prior to that, things were starting to open up. We were doing some cons, just trying to get the word out about our shop in the area to get more people to come out, which was super successful too. We got a lot of people for different card games coming because of that. Just even to come check us out, but definitely people who ended up just being good parts of our scenes and great customers. And one of my friends from my old shop again, he was doing cons with me, and I was like, hey man, I was like, we're end up gonna have to move out of here and get a new place, and rent in our area is kind of high, so I was like, I'd rather have a business partner going into this than having to take on a full lease by myself. So I got with him, and we shopped around. He found us a really great building that just had this super big. It used to be a dance studio, so like there's like this front little area that we use as the retail store, and then there's just this huge back room. So that worked out fantastically, and we signed a 2 year lease on that. We're coming up on that this coming year. We're going to make 5 years in business, which is pretty awesome. I couldn't keep my last one open for more than 6 months, and I'm on my fifth year. with this shop. So it's pretty stoked about that.
Yeah, it's been a huge success. One of my favorite things too about your shop in particular is that it's grown kind of bigger than Yu-Gi-Oh at this point. Your other games that you're having there are doing insanely well.
Yeah, yeah, we definitely started off as a big Yu-Gi-Oh scene, and once things kind of started to open up, and some other shops popped up here and there, and the scene's kind of spread out. We still got a dedicated group that comes, and I'm super happy to have that. But yeah, we really have been able to grow a lot of our scenes pretty well. Some things we focused on was like Smash Brothers. We had a good scene for that. Vanguard is the one that caught me off guard completely. I mean, we started off with like 5 to 6 guys who kind of sort of played Vanguard. I mean, they were coming to mamas, and we never had a tournament. They would come buy the product and sit and play all night, and I mean, that scene blew up. I this year, I don't know if it was just Bushiroad's marketing or what, but they really started showing up, and so we've been super happy to have them. That's been a great crowd to have, and it's something for us to kind of expand into. Um, Y Schwartz is another one that we're just now getting a tournament scene for. Again, just a small group of people who come and play every week, but we finally got enough to start running some tournaments, so that's moving in a good direction. We're getting new people coming by interested in it. We try dipping our toes in some other games. The My Hero one, it was nice in the beginning. That one kind of bottomed out though. I know they're taking that card game in a different direction. Shadowverse has been pretty decent. We got people interested in it. We did like a shop challenge, had a good turnout from there, and we got a dedicated local scene that's trying to grow.
Would you say Yu-Gi-Oh still your moneymaker though?
Yu-Gi-Oh is above and beyond still our number one moneymaker. And the thing about Yu-Gi-Oh is that you don't need a big scene for Yu-Gi-Oh. You just need competitive players, really, like people who just want the latest stuff coming out, right? We might not have the biggest locals, but when we throw on a case tournament, I mean, everyone comes out. Everybody wants to play for a case of cards, right? So that's always usually pretty good. A lot of people still come sell to us. There's still people who come out all the time, just like, oh, we didn't know you guys were ever here, and they pull out binders of stuff from years ago, and random value that they want to vend us. Uh, so yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh definitely is still our number one moneymaker above all else.
It's crazy how knowing how the business works is what's important about Yu-Gi-Oh. You see all these different shops and they give up on Yu-Gi-Oh because they say, "Hey, we don't have the players coming. We're not making the money." But you're living proof that if you work the TCG player, if you work, the buying and sell of the cards, if you work the cons, you're talking about going to conventions earlier, if you work the case tournaments, there's still a huge revenue stream for this game for every shop, really.
Yeah, and I follow a lot of shops, and I've done that for years, just because I want to see what they're doing. I want to get ideas, I want to see what's working for them, what's not working for them, and just kind of like get a general census of what they're doing. And I see a lot of shops open and close. I've been a part of the game for years, like I said, since I was at least since I was a teenager, from paying attention, right? So many a shop has come and gone. Many a Yu-Gi-Oh scene comes and goes. Um, Probably a thing I would recommend to anyone who's planning on doing this or doing this and your scene is dying. Uh, Sometimes that just happens. Sometimes there's just a generation shift. Sometimes people fall out of love with the game. Sometimes you get a bad format, whatever it may be. A lot of things can be a factor as to why your scene died out. And to that, I say don't kill it. Try and foster it. Foster what's there. Try and get people back in the door, putting on these, even if it's just for special events, whatever it may be. But the number one thing that is super critical is marketing. You have to understand marketing, especially in this day and age. Facebook is free, Twitter is free, Instagram is free. You don't have to pay for these services. You just have to post something. You have to post something and then share it, and then call your friend and ask him to share it, and then call some of your players and ask them to share it. That is some of the most powerful things that you can do for your store. You don't have to have a big scene, but if you have a good marketing game, you can still make money. You can still make money, and you can still get people in the door buying your product. And there's a lot of creative, innovative ways to get people in the store. And in fact, I was just talking to another shop owner in our area. Jonathan Fry for One Up TCG, and he's got some brilliant ideas to get people in his stores. And he was just letting me pick his brain, and I'm telling you that I definitely will be using some of his ideas coming up soon because he's really knows what he's doing in that department.
Dude, I love that you stay in touch with all these different shop owners and y'all can kind of work together because players we have a community, but shop owners they also have a community.
You make more money online than you will make in store ever. Period. Because there's no comparison to a global audience. There's no comparison to everyone around the world ordering from you, right? Something as simple as TCG Player, setting up an Amazon store, whatever you got to do, Facebook Marketplace, whatever idea you have to sell cards, do it. Just do it. It's miserable. It sucks when you're sitting there staring down 100 orders that you got to envelope, package up, stick in a top loader, whatever. It sucks. It's boring. You just got to get in a routine. If you ever order from our store, just so you know, every Monday those packages go out. Every Monday, every package is put together, and it goes out into the mail. It gets shipped off at the post office. Every single Monday, our stuff's going out. If you order on a Tuesday, I'm putting it together Tuesday. If you're ordering on Wednesday, I'm ordering on Wednesday. The only night I take off from not doing packages is a Sunday. But if you order me every other day of the week, I'm putting it together. I'm putting it together. I'm shipping it out, and that's just me sitting down, listening to a podcast, and going through TCG Player, pulling all my orders. That is the most unfun thing. I do not like it, but I have to do it. It is my job.
You feel rewarded after you do it.
I feel rewarded after I look at the payments. That
A
makes it
great
feel
way to
worth it
put
at the end of the day. That's the motivation.
'Cause that's
Is a
'cause that's money you're not seeing from your store.
Right. We always give our locals the opportunity to get the stuff first. Especially Alex. You're in group chats with us. I always post, "Hey, is anybody looking for this?" Or if you guys specifically say, "Hey, I need this," I'll go find it for you first. I'll hold it for you first. I'll give you all the opportunity first every time to get it.
Yeah, that's what's cool
Yeah,
about being friends with local store owners is whenever I need a card, one of the first people I message is always Will. Hey, Will, do you have this card? If he does, I know right then and there he's putting it to the side for me.
yeah, absolutely. I pull it aside, and you guys, I've delivered stuff to your house in the middle of the night before.
When I need it for a regional, yes, I'll
Yeah,
say,
if
Will, for the
you
love of
if you
God,
need
I
it
will drive
ASAP,
to your house.
right? I think you have come to my house before too. We've literally done this. Yeah, being friends with your shop owner is a great thing. I want to say this on the online aspect too. Guys, please be nice to us online. Please, I promise you, the U.S. Post Office sucks. It sucks a lot. If you saw the amount of money I lost last year and the year before and lost packages, it's awful. And I promise you, I don't want to have to refund you your money. And I promise you, I'm not stealing your cards. I'm not keeping them. I'm shipping it to you with the wholehearted belief that it is coming to you and that you're going to get it and that you're going to have its play for your regionals. And if the price jumped on it, I don't know the price jumped on it because I don't check the price after it's sold. I don't care. It's sold. I listed it for a price. It's gone. It's coming to you. I don't care if it doubled, tripled value. I know some scummy people who do that. But I promise you, more stores than not are trying to do right by you, and something out of their control is the reason you don't get your package. And we're terribly sorry about it, and I'll give you your money back, but please don't give me a 1-star review for something that I can't control.
Reputation is everything, especially when because I've seen your responses. You're trying to be as professional as possible, and get them their money as fast as possible. You're apologetic. You give great customer service. You know, respond to that good customer service is definitely the message there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will definitely say I've had way more respectful people than I've had not. But man, you don't forget the ones that are just very rude to you.
For sure. So you told us before you have a wife, you have two kids, and you have a third one on the way. I don't know if I should
Yes,
say that, but you do
that's
have a
fine.
third one
Yeah.
on the way.
If you on my Facebook, it's pretty public knowledge. My wife tags
It's pretty
me
public.
every other day
Okay,
in
good.
something.
I'm not trying to break news here, but tell us, having a family and owning a Yu-Gi-Oh card shop or just a card shop in general, how do you balance it?
It's pretty difficult. So for anyone who knows me, I do work another job outside of having a card shop. Spoiler alert: card shop's not going to pay all your bills right off the bat. You got to work up to that. But I work 4 days a week at my other job. I work at the card shop 3 days a week, and then I'm doing online sales every other night of the week. So I'm working 50 to 60 plus hours a week between everything. The important thing with balance is that when I come home from every Sunday, Monday are my days off, right? I Sunday, Monday is family time. That's I don't do anything but spend time with my family. I'm hardly on my phone. I'm really just trying to be there in the moment with my wife and kids. And we're usually going out doing something, going to visit other family, whatever it may be. Then the days I come home from work, again, try and stay off my phone as much as possible and just enjoy those few hours of the evening with them, cook dinner. And then the nights that I'm at the shop, as my attention's fully there at the shop, any new packages, whatever it may be coming in, I'm merchandising all that out. My attention is on everyone. You've seen it, Alex. When I walk through that door, everybody needs my attention. I'm the man of the hour. Where's this? Where can I find that? Hey Will, hey Will, hey Will, hey Will, hey Will. So it's a challenge. It's a struggle for sure. But you really just need a balance. You just have to make a schedule, stick to that schedule, and make the most of the time that is available.
So, what's your goal as a store moving forward? When do you think you'll be in a position where your OTS store is your full time gig and nothing else?
It's a great question. I think it's just a process of time. I don't think I think there's probably very few and far in between store owners that just opened a shop and they were able to do that gig right off the bat, unless they were just already fairly well off and had the money set aside or something to do that. Because anyone in this business just knows like the money you make. It's not like great money, because the most of the money's for the store. You got overhead, you got to pay for your bills, you got to pay taxes. Um, and a lot of it can just depend on your clientele as well. Your local scene does make a big difference. That's why you want to foster community, find ways to get them to spend money. And that's only so much in itself. That's again where the online sales plays a big part. Definitely I would like to see it one day where the only thing I do is the store, the shop. To say that I'm there yet, no, I'm not. I Like I said, I got a wife, I got kids, I've got a mortgage and everything else to pay in between there. So I like to be secure with my money. I want to make sure that they get to live comfortably, and I get to keep doing this at the same time. The store itself it's successful. It pays its own bills. We make a little extra, and a lot of times I'm just reinvesting that. I'm reinvesting that to just watch the store grow. Taking it small, not big. I've never taken out a massive loan for my store. I don't want to put myself in that kind of debt. I've taken out very small little loans. I've paid them off. Uh, and that's the way I like to keep it, because at the end of the day, I'm not owing someone else for my business.
Love that. I love that. And I love your story as a shop owner. Pivoting away from being a shop owner, you don't really play as much anymore. Do you have any goals left as a player in this game?
Yeah, I definitely do. I know it doesn't seem like it a lot. Being a shop owner definitely takes away from your ability to play. Because there's plenty of times where I definitely want to just sit down and play with you guys, right? But customers coming in or whatever responsibility, or I've got to take care of something for the business that'll prevent me from doing so, or I can't travel out to the events with you guys because I have to be there for the business because I got another game going on that day or another event. And anyone who's been in my shop knows that I'm very hands on with my communities, right? Like I'm not a guy just sitting behind the counter. Like I'm walking around all night long. I'm talking to everybody. I'm socializing. Like it. You are my friend inside that shop. Like I'm getting to know everybody. So I do put a lot of stock into the attention I give my communities inside my store. But I do still very much like playing Yu-Gi-Oh. I do want to still get to go to a regional or case tournaments or YCSs, and maybe next year I think I'll be in a spot where maybe I get to travel a little more. Things are looking a little bit better, and with the way things are running, and we've got a couple extra associates at the shop now that are helping out. So I've always said this, especially from the story I told earlier with my YCS top. I'm definitely not quitting till I at least top a YCS one more time.
It's definitely a great goal to have. Last but not least, man, do you have any hobbies outside of Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yeah, I do. I do. I, you know, uh, I think you may have said this before too. If you play Yu-Gi-Oh at the highest level, you can play any card game. You really can. I promise you that no other card game is anywhere near the level of depth it takes to play Yu-Gi-Oh. If you can play Yu-Gi-Oh at even a mid-level, you can play any other card game at a high level. So one game that has really caught my attention that I really do enjoy is Y Shorts. Y Shorts has been a lot of fun. Um, the game itself is not as hyper competitive as Yu-Gi-Oh. The community is a lot smaller, but it's a fun game to play. It's sometimes a game you can't take too seriously because there's a lot of RNG based, but it's a lot of fun. I get to kind of turn my brain off and just laugh and joke with my friends. Like we just have a really good time playing that. And outside of that, my on top of on top of running a store, on top of trying to play trying to play Weiss, having a family and everything, I'm actually still my biggest dream in life is I'm an aspiring writer. I love writing. I'm very passionate about it, and that's something I'm still working towards. I've been in my spare time just steadily writing away, trying to work on getting something published, and that's a big goal for me as well.
You have any material out there already?
I do have a couple of like small self-published projects. One of them was this big comic compilation done by a local artist here. He's actually his name's Joe Badden. He's getting like a lot of traction as a like independent filmmaker now. But I met him at a con years ago, and he invited me to be a part of this project. What was the name of that book? Oh. Memoirs of the Mysterious, Volume Two. That was the name of the book, and I wrote a short comic in there. It's called The Pregnancy Scare. It's a compilation of like short horror stories, sci-fi stuff, and a pretty cool story behind it. He was just pairing up a bunch of like freelance, independent, local writers and artists. So I wrote my script for the book, and he tried to pair me with a writer. I'm sorry, with an artist, and so the artist was really cool. Guy did an absolutely great job on the book, and the guy who's supposed to ink our book, I think he had a family emergency come up, so he couldn't do it. And somehow or another, forgot somebody who was involved in the project knew like a really well-known inker from Marvel, and that guy inked my story, and that was like the most exciting thing ever. I was just like, someone from Marvel like put their hands on my story.
That's an awesome story, dude.
Yeah.
Dude, I really appreciate you coming out here. Real quick, where can we find your TCG player account?
It's going to be Action TCG on TCG Player. We got 5 stars. We're like about to crack 10,000 sales. I'm ready to have that 10K plus next to my name. I think I'm at like 9,200 or 9,300, something like that right now. But yeah, no, guys, I promise you, I'm an honest store. I will ship your package out every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Your stuff's going out. I'm not about holding stuff because the price went up. You can contact me directly and ask if your stuff went out. I'll send you a picture of it.
And I could personally attest he will respond to you ASAP. Well, guys, that was Mr. William Cadden joining us today, talking about his journey as a OTS store owner and a little bit about his history as a player as well. This is Alex with the Pop.1 podcast. Please, please, please check out all our socials. We have a Facebook, we have a Discord. Links are going to be in the description. We're also on Spotify now, where you can find all of our Pop.1 podcast episodes on there as well. Shout out to our sponsor, Dueling Guard. Check them out for incredible accessories for your dueling needs. With that being said, thank you, everyone. Have a great day.